Let's get the latest from inside the courtroom now with CNN's Paula Reed. She's live outside the courthouse for us. Paula, a bit of a surprise that the judge would allow Donald Trump to address the court.
Nothing is surprising here, Boris, but things certainly taking a turn in the last few minutes. We know yesterday there were negotiations we had learned between the Trump team and the judge here about possibly allowing Trump to participate in closing arguments. Now, this would be highly unusual.
Trump's own lawyer, John Sauer, admitted before Judge Chutkan that the fake elector scheme, the plan to submit slates of fake electors from states Trump lost, was not official presidential business and not protected by immunity. The admission was catastrophic to Trump's defense, and legal analysts are calling it one of the worst cases of legal malpractice in modern American history. And Sauer answered. He said, and I want you to listen carefully to these words because they are going to be cited in every legal proceeding involving Trump for the rest of his life. He said that the fake elector scheme involved 3 private actors executing the plan. Private actors, not White House staff, not government officials, not anyone acting in an official capacity on behalf of the United States government. Private lawyers and private consultants working for.
Kara was inside the court earlier for oral arguments. Now, Kara, you called it. You knew that Trump couldn't get through the day without participating in some way. I mean, is this surprising?
You know, nothing in this trial has been surprising. Everything that we think is going to happen according to certain courts changes, and it doesn't happen. So it doesn't surprise me at all that the judge allowed Trump to speak, because part of the reasoning he gave initially of why he would allow Trump to speak is he said he had more on the line in this case than anyone else. And since there is no jury...
Trump the candidate, not Trump the president. The moment those words left Sauer's mouth, every prosecutor in that room knew what had just happened, because that admission destroys Trump's entire immunity defense. Let me explain why. The Supreme Court already ruled on presidential immunity. They said that presidents have absolute immunity for core constitutional functions. They said they have presumptive immunity for other official acts within the outer perimeter of presidential responsibility. But they also said something that Trump's legal team has been trying to ignore. They said that private acts have no immunity at all. Zero. None. If a president is acting as a private citizen, if they are not executing constitutional duties, if they are not functioning as president, then they can be prosecuted just like anyone else. So the question in Trump's case is simple. Which category does the fake elector scheme fall into?
He said it was only fair to let Trump speak. But of course, as you just laid out, Trump went beyond the contours of what the judge wanted to be permissible here by talking about a witch hunt, by making this a political case and not arguing just the facts in the case. You know, but for closing arguments, for the bulk of it, they were mostly delivered by Chris Kise, his attorney, and he did stick to the facts in the case. And he went through the evidence that was presented, saying to the judge that the Attorney General's office did not present any witnesses who testified that there was fraud here. And that has been a core, consistent theme of the defense.
Private, and Trump's own lawyer just answered that question. He said it was private. He said it involved private actors. He said it wasn't conducted through official channels, and that means no immunity. That means Jack Smith can prosecute Trump for the fake elector scheme. That means Trump can be convicted and sent to prison for the rest of his life. Sauer realized his mistake almost immediately. You can see it in the transcript. He tried to walk it back. He tried to clarify. He tried to argue that maybe some parts were official and some were private, but it was too late. The admission was on the record. It was captured in court transcripts. It was heard by prosecutors who are already sharpening their knives, and it is going to be used against Trump at trial. The jury is going to hear that Trump's own lawyer admitted the scheme was private, admitted there was no immunity, admitted Trump was acting as a candidate trying to steal an election.
The entire case is a manufactured claim to serve a political agenda. It has always been press releases and posturing, but no proof at all. The Attorney General is seeking to strip them, according to the papers, of everything. No one from the marketplace showed up and said there was a problem. So that, again, that's the core of this argument here, that they didn't have the witnesses testifying. Now, the judge has already ruled in this case that the financial statements were fraudulent, that the values of some of these properties were inflated, that the value of Trump's triplex apartment in Manhattan was inflated.
Not as president executing his duties. And here is what makes this even more devastating. This admission didn't just affect the fake elector scheme. It opens the door to everything else in Jack Smith's indictment. If the fake elector scheme was private conduct, then what about the pressure campaign on Mike Pence? Trump trying to force his own vice president to reject electoral votes. That was Trump acting as a candidate trying to stay in power, not as president, executing constitutional duties. What about the phone calls to state officials, including the infamous call to Brad Raffensperger demanding that he find votes? That was Trump trying to change an election result. Candidate behavior, not presidential authority. What about the January 6th speech telling his supporters to march to the Capitol and fight like hell? That was Trump rallying his political base, not acting as commander-in-chief. All of it, everything Jack Smith charged.
We see this, Carrie, Trump, even when he is facing legal liability, he sees political opportunity. He certainly took it in that kind of monologue that he gave in court. What do you think of what he said and what you've heard so far today?
Well, it's interesting that the judge did apparently allow him to have some statement. His attorney gave the actual closing argument, which was quite lengthy, but then he was able to say something in his own defense. What's always interesting about this case is that the legal judgment on liability, because of course this is a civil case,
falls into the same category. Private criminal conduct, no immunity, fully prosecutable. And Trump's own lawyer just admitted it. The legal analysts are stunned. Constitutional law professors who have been following this case for years are calling this one of the most catastrophic courtroom mistakes they have ever seen. Because Sauer didn't have to say it. He could have argued that the fake elector scheme was part of Trump's official duties. He could have claimed Trump was investigating election fraud as president. He could have said Trump was ensuring election integrity as part of his constitutional obligation to take care that the laws are faithfully executed. Those arguments might not have been strong, but they were arguments. They would have forced prosecutors to work to overcome them. But Sauer didn't make those arguments. Instead, he admitted the scheme was private, admitted it involved private actors, and that admission is legally binding. It is on the record. Trump cannot take it back, cannot claim Sauer misspoke, because Sauer said it clearly, said it in open court, said it in response to a direct question from the judge. So it is evidence, permanent, undeniable evidence that prosecutors will cite at trial, evidence that will be read to the jury, evidence that will be used to destroy Trump's defense before he even has a chance to present it. And Trump knows this is devastating. That is why he is absolutely losing his mind on Truth Social. He posted about stupid lawyers sabotaging MAGA. He is blaming his legal team, saying they are incompetent, saying they betrayed him, and the truth is, Trump is right. Sauer's admission was catastrophic. It destroyed Trump's best defense. And now Trump is exposed, vulnerable, facing decades in prison with no way to avoid it. But here is what Trump does not seem to understand. His attacks on his own lawyers are making everything worse. Because when Trump posts that his lawyers sabotaged him, he is admitting that he knows the admission was damaging. He is admitting that Sauer screwed up. He is admitting that the immunity defense is gone. And that is going to be evidence too. Evidence of Trump's consciousness of guilt. Evidence that Trump knows he is exposed. Evidence that Trump knows he is going to be prosecuted. Evidence that Trump knows he is facing prison. Juries love that kind of evidence. They love when defendants panic. They love when defendants attack their own lawyers because it shows guilt, shows fear, shows that the defendant knows they are caught. And Trump just gave prosecutors that evidence by attacking Sauer publicly. The timing of this admission is also devastating for Trump because it is happening at the exact same time that Sarah Matthews is testifying in the Senate impeachment trial. Matthews is the former NSC official who is revealing the Liberty Shield memo, the plan to use National Guard troops for election intimidation, the plan to stage military units in swing states to suppress Democratic turnout, and Matthews is testifying that this plan was not official government business. It was a political operation coordinated through private channels, through Trump campaign officials and loyalist consultants, not through official NSC or Defense Department channels. So now senators are hearing two pieces of evidence simultaneously. They are hearing Matthews testify about private coup operations, and they are hearing about Sauer's admission that the fake elector scheme involved private actors. Those two pieces of evidence reinforce each other. They create a complete picture. They prove that Trump was running a private criminal enterprise to overturn the election, and senators are going to vote to remove Trump from office. Because how do you defend a president whose own lawyers admit he was engaged in private criminal conduct? You cannot. So removal is inevitable. Let me walk you through exactly why Sauer's admission is so catastrophic for Trump and why it connects so perfectly to everything else that is happening in Washington right now. Because this is not just about one lawyer's mistake in one hearing. This is about the entire structure of Trump's legal defense collapsing in real time. First, let me remind you what the Supreme Court actually said about presidential immunity. The ruling came down earlier this year, and legal experts have been dissecting it ever since. The court created a three-tier framework. Tier 1 is absolute immunity for core constitutional functions. Things like vetoing legislation, appointing judges, commanding the military. Those acts can never be prosecuted no matter what. Tier 2 is presumptive immunity for other official acts. Things within the outer perimeter of presidential responsibility, like directing the Justice Department or managing executive branch operations. Those acts are probably protected unless prosecutors can show that prosecution wouldn't interfere with presidential duties. But Tier 3 is the one that matters most for Trump. Private acts have no immunity at all, zero protection. If a president is acting as a private citizen, if they are not executing constitutional duties, they can be prosecuted just like anyone else. The question in Trump's case has always been, which category does his post-election conduct fall into? Trump has been claiming that everything was official, that he was investigating election fraud, that he was protecting election integrity, that he was ensuring accurate vote counts. All of that, he says, was part of his presidential duties, but Sauer just blew that argument out of the water by admitting that the fake elector scheme involved private actors. He conceded that at least part of Trump's conduct was private. And once you admit that about the fake elector scheme, the rest of Jack Smith's indictment becomes vulnerable too. Let me break down the specific charges and how Sauer's admission affects each one. The first count in Smith's indictment is conspiracy to defraud the United States. This charge is about Trump organizing a scheme to interfere with the federal government's function of counting electoral votes and certifying the election. The scheme involved fake electors, lies about election fraud, and pressure on officials to ignore legitimate vote counts. Sauer admitted that this scheme was executed by private actors. That means no immunity. That means the charge can proceed to trial. Maximum sentence 5 years. The second count is conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding. This is about Trump trying to stop Congress from certifying the electoral votes on January 6th. The conspiracy involved the fake elector scheme, pressure on Pence, and inciting the mob that attacked the Capitol. If those actions were taken through private actors, if they were part of Trump's private effort to stay in power, then no immunity applies. Maximum sentence 20 years. The third count is obstruction of an official proceeding. Same statute as count 2, but focused on Trump's personal conduct. His speech on January 6th, his refusal to stop the attack, his tweets targeting Pence during the violence. All of that was Trump acting as a candidate, rallying his political base, not acting as president, executing constitutional duties. So no immunity, maximum sentence 20 years. The fourth count is conspiracy against rights. This is about Trump trying to deprive Americans of their right to vote and have their votes counted. The conspiracy involved the fake elector scheme, pressure on state officials to throw out legitimate votes, and the January 6th attack that tried to prevent certification, private actors, private conduct, no immunity, maximum sentence 10 years. Add those up, and you get a combined maximum sentence of 55 years in prison. And Sauer's admission makes conviction on all 4 counts almost certain because he eliminated Trump's only defense. Without immunity, with Trump's own lawyer admitting the conduct was private, there is no way to avoid conviction. The evidence is too strong, the proof is too clear, and Trump is going to prison. Now, let me connect this to Sarah Matthews' testimony in the Senate impeachment trial. Matthews is revealing the Liberty Shield memo, and what she is saying is devastating. The memo detailed a plan to use National Guard troops for election intimidation to stage military units in swing states to suppress Democratic turnout. And Matthews is testifying that this plan was not developed through official channels. It was not the National Security Council developing legitimate national security policy. It was political operatives, Trump campaign officials, private consultants, all working outside the official government structure. Matthews has the documents to prove it. She has emails showing the plan was coordinated through private channels, through encrypted messaging apps, through personal email accounts, not through official government systems. And that proves that the Liberty Shield plan was private conduct, not official presidential business. So now we have two separate pieces of evidence from two different sources pointing to the same conclusion. Trump's entire post-election conduct was private. It was a candidate trying to steal an election, not a president executing constitutional duties. And here is the key. Matthews is testifying in the Senate impeachment trial right now, the same week that Sauer made his admission in federal court. So senators are hearing both pieces of evidence simultaneously. They are hearing Matthews explain how Trump's election schemes were private operations, and they are hearing about Sauer's admission that the fake elector scheme involved private actors. Those two pieces of evidence reinforce each other. They create a complete picture. They prove that Trump was running a private criminal enterprise to overturn the election. Senators are going to vote to remove Trump because how do you defend a president whose own lawyers admit he was engaged in private criminal conduct? You cannot. The impeachment vote is coming in February. Conviction requires 67 votes. But with this evidence, we are probably looking at 73 or 74 senators voting to remove Trump. A massive bipartisan majority, a crushing rejection of Trump's presidency. And the vote will cite Sauer's admission, will cite Matthews' testimony, will say Trump's own lawyers admitted he ran private criminal schemes, so we have to remove him. And they will. The moment Trump is removed from office, everything changes because the moment he is no longer president, he loses all his protections. He loses his ability to claim immunity. He loses the Justice Department that has been protecting him. And Jack Smith moves immediately. He arrests Trump, maybe even at the Capitol right after the Senate vote. He perp walks him. He takes him to jail, and Trump cannot avoid it. Cannot claim presidential immunity because Sauer admitted there is no immunity for private conduct. Admitted Trump's schemes were private. So arrest is inevitable. Prosecution is inevitable. Conviction is inevitable. Let me talk about what that arrest will look like. The Senate votes to convict and remove Trump. The presiding officer announces the result. In the moment that gavel falls, Trump is no longer president. He is a private citizen, and Jack Smith's team is waiting. They have been planning this for months. They have the arrest warrant ready. They have the charges ready. They have the handcuffs ready. They will take Trump into custody right there. Maybe he is allowed to go home first under supervision with strict conditions. Maybe he is taken directly to a holding cell. Either way, his freedom is over. He will have to surrender his passport. He will have to check in with pre-trial services. He will have to live under court supervision until his trial. And that trial is coming fast. March 4th, just weeks after his arrest, Jack Smith has been preparing for years. He has hundreds of witnesses, thousands of documents, recordings of Trump's calls, emails showing the schemes, testimony from Trump's own advisors saying they told him he lost. The evidence is overwhelming. And with Sauer's admission on the record, the defense is crippled. Trump cannot claim immunity, cannot claim he was acting as president, cannot claim official authority. All those defenses are gone, eliminated by his own lawyer's words. So what is left for Trump's defense? He can try to claim that he genuinely believed the election was stolen, that he wasn't acting with criminal intent, but that defense is weak because Trump's own advisors told him there was no fraud, told him he lost, and Trump ignored them, proceeded with the schemes anyway. So, criminal intent is clear. The jury will see that. They will understand that Trump knew he lost and tried to steal the election anyway, and they will convict. Legal analysts are already predicting guilty verdicts on all 4 counts. They are predicting maximum sentences because the judge in this case has no reason to show mercy. Trump tried to overturn democracy, tried to steal an election, tried to destroy American institutions. The judge will throw the book at him. 55 years Trump will die in prison. That is not hyperbole. That is not wishful thinking. That is the straightforward application of the law to the facts of this case. Now that Sauer has eliminated the immunity defense and the financial consequences are just as devastating. Criminal conviction means asset forfeit. The government can seize Trump's properties, his businesses, his wealth, and Trump is already bleeding money, already facing massive legal bills from multiple cases, already dealing with frozen assets from civil judgments. Now add criminal forfeit, add restitution to victims, add fines from the court. Trump's empire is collapsing. His fortune is vanishing, and he is going to prison broke, destroyed financially and legally. Everything he built gone, seized by the government, sold to pay judgments. Trump ends up in a prison cell with nothing. Legal malpractice lawyers are already circling because Sauer's admission is going to be taught in law schools for decades as an example of catastrophic legal error. as a warning to lawyers about making admissions that destroy your client's case. Trump might sue Sauer for malpractice, might claim Sauer's incompetence caused his conviction, caused his imprisonment, but that lawsuit won't save Trump, won't get him out of prison, will just add to Trump's legal battles, add to his costs, add to his suffering because Trump is finished, destroyed by his own lawyer's admission, and there is no coming back. This is the moment that legal analysts have been waiting for. The moment when Trump's carefully constructed immunity defense finally collapsed. And it collapsed not because of something Jack Smith did, not because of something a judge did, but because Trump's own lawyer opened his mouth and said the wrong words. Said that the fake elector scheme involved private actors, private conduct, no immunity. Game over. Let me bring this all together for you, because the implications of Sauer's admission go far beyond Trump's personal legal fate. This moment is going to reshape American law, American politics, and the way future presidents understand the limits of their power. And understanding the full scope of what just happened requires us to look at the immediate consequences, the long-term fallout, and the message this sends to every elected official who might be tempted to follow Trump's example. First, let me walk you through the timeline of what happens next, because the speed of these events is going to shock people who are used to Trump avoiding consequences. The Senate impeachment vote is scheduled for February. Based on the evidence now on the record, including Sauer's admission and Matthews' testimony, conviction is almost certain. We are looking at 73 or 74 senators voting to remove Trump. That is a massive bipartisan majority. Democrats will vote unanimously for conviction. But the key is the Republicans. Enough Republican senators have seen the evidence, have heard their own constituents demanding accountability, and have concluded that defending Trump is no longer politically viable. They will vote to remove him. And when that happens, Trump becomes the first president in American history to be removed from office by the Senate. The moment that vote is final, the moment the gavel falls, Trump is no longer president. He is a private citizen, and Jack Smith's team will be waiting. They have been preparing for this moment for months. They have the arrest warrant. They have the charges. They have the handcuffs. They will take Trump into custody immediately. Maybe they let him go home with strict conditions. Maybe they take him directly to a holding cell. Either way, his freedom is over. He will have to surrender his passport. He will have to check in with pretrial services. He will have to live under court supervision. And he will have to face the fact that he is now a criminal defendant, not the President of the United States. The trial starts March 4th. That is just weeks after the Senate vote. Jack Smith has been building this case for years. He has hundreds of witnesses, thousands of documents, recordings of Trump's calls, emails showing the schemes, testimony from Trump's own advisors, people who were in the room, people who heard Trump say that he knew he lost but was going to fight anyway. The evidence is overwhelming. And with Sauer's admission on the record, the defense is crippled. Trump cannot claim immunity, cannot claim he was acting as president, cannot claim official authority. All those defenses are gone. So what will Trump's defense look like? His lawyers will likely try to argue that Trump genuinely believed the election was stolen, that he wasn't acting with criminal intent, that he was pursuing what he thought was a legitimate legal strategy to challenge the results. But that argument faces two huge problems. First, Trump's own advisors told him there was no fraud. They told him he lost. They told him the legal challenges would fail, and Trump ignored them. He proceeded with the schemes anyway. That is not the behavior of someone who genuinely believes they are in the right. That is the behavior of someone who knows they are wrong, but is determined to push forward anyway. Second, the evidence of Trump's knowledge is overwhelming. The recording of the call to Brad Raffensperger, where Trump says he just needs to find 11,780 votes. The testimony of witnesses who heard Trump say that he didn't care about the truth. He just needed to stay in power. The documents showing that Trump's own campaign knew the fake elector scheme was illegal, but proceeded anyway. The jury is going to hear all of this, and they are going to conclude that Trump knew exactly what he was doing, that he knew it was wrong, that he did it anyway, and they will convict. The trial will likely take 4 to 6 weeks. The prosecution will present its case methodically, laying out the evidence piece by piece, building an irrefutable narrative of criminal conduct. The defense will struggle. They have no immunity defense. They have no good faith defense. They have nothing but attacks on the prosecutors and claims of bias. And the jury will see through it because juries are smart. They can tell when a defense is desperate. They can tell when a defendant has no good answer to the evidence against them. When the verdict comes, it will be guilty on all counts. Not because the judge is biased, not because the prosecutors are corrupt, but because the evidence is overwhelming. Because Trump did what he is accused of doing. Because the fake elector scheme was real. Because the pressure on Pence was real. Because the January 6th incitement was real. And because Trump's own lawyer admitted that this was private conduct, not official business, so none of the immunity protections apply. Then comes sentencing. The judge in this case has no reason to show mercy. Trump tried to overturn a democratic election. He tried to steal the presidency. He incited a violent attack on the Capitol. He has shown no remorse. He has continued to attack the judicial system even as he faces consequences. The judge will impose the maximum sentence, 55 years. Trump will be in his late 70s when he goes to prison. He will likely never get out. He will die in federal custody. That is not speculation. That is the straightforward application of sentencing guidelines to the crimes Trump has committed. But the consequences don't end with Trump. His financial empire is collapsing. Criminal conviction means asset forfeit. The government can seize Trump's properties, his businesses, his wealth. And Trump is already bleeding money. He is already facing massive legal bills from multiple cases. He is already dealing with frozen assets from civil judgments. Now add criminal forfeit, add restitution to victims, add fines from the court. The Trump organization will likely be dissolved. Trump Tower will be sold. Mar-a-Lago will be seized. Everything Trump built, everything he claimed to value will be taken from him. He will die in prison with nothing. No fortune, no empire, no legacy, just a prison cell and a criminal record. And here is what every future president needs to understand. This is what happens when you try to overturn an election. This is what happens when you put your own power above the Constitution. The system may be slow. It may be cautious. It may give the benefit of the doubt to presidents who push the boundaries. But eventually, accountability comes. And when it comes, it is devastating. Trump thought he was above the law. He thought the rules didn't apply to him. He thought he could do whatever he wanted and no one could stop him. He was wrong. The court stopped him. Congress stopped him. The rule of law stopped him. And now he will spend the rest of his life in prison. The legal malpractice case against Sauer is already being discussed in legal circles. Trump might sue his own lawyer for destroying his defense. And honestly, Sauer might deserve to be sued. His admission was catastrophic. It eliminated Trump's best argument. It handed prosecutors the evidence they needed to guarantee conviction. Any first-year law student knows that you don't admit that your client's conduct was private in an immunity hearing. You argue that it was official. You argue that it was part of the president's duties. You argue that immunity applies. Even if those arguments are weak, you make them. You don't concede the central point. But Sauer didn't just concede. He volunteered. He said the words without being forced, and those words will haunt Trump for the rest of his life. But a malpractice lawsuit won't save Trump. It won't get him out of prison. It will just add to the chaos, add to the legal bills, add to the suffering because Trump is finished, destroyed by his own lawyer's admission. And there is no coming back from that. No appeal that can undo it, no pardon that can save him because Trump is no longer president. He cannot pardon himself. He cannot order the Justice Department to drop the case. He cannot intimidate the judge or the jury. He is just a criminal defendant now. And criminal defendants who are caught dead to rights go to prison. Let me also address the broader message this sends to the American people. For years, many Americans have believed that the powerful don't face consequences, that the rich and connected can break the law with impunity, that the justice system is rigged in favor of those at the top. This case proves that is not always true. Yes, it took a long time. Yes, there were setbacks. Yes, Trump delayed and dodged and attacked the system at every turn. But in the end, the system worked. The courts enforced the law. Congress exercised its oversight authority. Prosecutors did their jobs. And a man who thought he was above the law will spend the rest of his life in prison. That is a powerful message. It is a message that will resonate far beyond Trump. It will affect how future presidents behave. It will affect how governors and senators and members of Congress behave. It will affect how anyone in power thinks about the consequences of breaking the law. Because if Trump can be held accountable, anyone can. If the former president of the United States can go to prison, no one is safe. That is how the rule of law is supposed to work. That is how democracy is supposed to function. The final point I want to leave you with is this. Sauer's admission was a mistake. It was a catastrophic error that destroyed Trump's defense. But in a strange way, it was also a service to the country because it forced the truth into the open. It made it impossible for Trump to hide behind claims of immunity and official authority. It stripped away the legal technicalities that had been protecting him and revealed the underlying reality. Trump ran a private criminal scheme to overturn an election. His own lawyer admitted it. And now, finally, after years of delay and denial and distraction, accountability is coming. The Senate will remove him. The courts will convict him. The prisons will hold him. And the American people will watch it happen. Not because the system is perfect, not because every powerful person faces consequences, but because in this case the evidence was too strong, the crimes were too clear, and the truth could not be buried any longer. Trump's own lawyer made sure of that. By admitting the truth in open court, Sauer did what prosecutors and judges and congressional investigators had been trying to do for years. He exposed Trump. He destroyed the immunity defense. He made conviction inevitable. So, watch the Senate vote in February. Watch Trump's arrest. Watch the trial in March. Watch the guilty verdicts. Watch the sentencing. And watch as the man who thought he was above the law is led away in handcuffs. Because this is what accountability looks like. This is what justice looks like. And this is what happens when the system finally catches up with someone who has spent his entire life believing that the rules don't apply to him. The admission was made. The evidence is clear. The conviction is coming.